How are we doing today, everybody? I'm Wolf of the Wolves Den, and today I wanted to go over some of the video projects that I had planned for this channel. First off, I'm a longtime gamer. I got my first Hitachi laptop around the age of 3 or 4, and it came with an emulator on it for Super Nintendo and NES ROMs. I played all kinds of games, so many that I couldn't even list them all, can't even remember them all. Some of them were Japanese games, really encouraged me early to be interested in gaming, and then also how to just figure things out at an early age. I know all of us were on computers and technology very young, but there's something about, getting started first thing on an emulator. And I was so young that I didn't even really know how, like, what drop down menus were, things like that, when you click file or edit and it has the pop down menus. So I didn't know that I could, change the default control schemes. So back then, the default control scheme for that emulator, whatever it was, I don't remember, was the arrow keys for, moving around. Makes sense. But then the input buttons were your home row up on top, literally right above the arrow keys on most keyboards. So that's the print screen, pause, insert, page up, page down, those buttons. All those buttons there were like your A, B, X, Y, L1, R1, those types of buttons. And so for every game, I just open it up to figure out the controls right then and there. Uh, Kind of like when you are playing Street Fighter or Tekken, and it says, kick, heavy attack, weak attack, light attack, instead of ABXY. You're like, what are you figure it out over time as you practice that. Been doing that for as long as I can remember. I went to college at a place where instead of pursuing a major, you were able to create your own emphasis, which involved basically taking a list of prospective courses over the next 4 years, creating your own curriculum, and then following that, and then basically you have a committee panel where you defend or make arguments for why your emphasis is equivalent to that of a major. And so my emphasis, instead of pursuing like English or philosophy, mine was using critical approaches and theoretical analysis to explore creative development. I performed and worked in a performing arts theater for a very long time, did a lot of lighting and audio setups, as well as performing and acting and music. And so I really wanted to know how, stage writers or playwriters, what makes them tick, authors, what makes them tick, actors, what's our process for understanding the lines and memorizing them, what's our process of memorization, how does the memorization process itself function, and things like that. And so a lot of what I studied in college was related to basically the things that I'm good at and the things that I enjoyed doing. I'm good at breaking things down, I'm good at analyzing things, I'm good at seeing all the pieces and how they coalesce together. I'm also really enjoy doing that, and I enjoy that for video games, I enjoy that for music, I enjoy that for theater and art and movies, all kinds of things. So in my time over the years, I've really wanted to make YouTube videos for a long time. And it's always been that thing where it's just like, oh, I don't have anything good to say, or this or that. And my video editing skills are not that great. Even though I've taken video editing classes, I'm using DaVinci Resolve now, and I learned on a Mac. It's just a long time coming, this YouTube channel. And so I wanted to get some ideas out there of the things that I've been working on, and I actually have a lot of behind the scenes scripts, and it's just a matter of me actually making these videos. And so part of this is to, one, hold me accountable and actually get started on this project that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and then two, let you guys know a little bit about what I'm working on and then how we get there. So without further ado, I want to start off with saying that I have one big video project planned that is probably going to take at least a year. I can't really say how long it's going to take. I wanted to get it. I literally wanted it to be done already, but it is so, it's beyond my scope as a video creator, as a writer, as a journalist. And so I really want to do justice. It involves a gaming development company, not a publisher, a small independent game development team that has been around in the industry. You have played their games. You've played probably at least 5 of their games. You won't recognize what game developer they are. It's really interesting. I'm really excited to go over it. I wish I could share more, but I really don't want to spoil anything. So if you are interested in kind of video game history of a specific, both of video games themselves, and then also the publisher, and then where that led to today, it's a really interesting story. It's kind of scary. I'm a little scared for my own life. It's like, it's not that big a deal, but also when you watch the video, you'll understand why I say that, because in light of like the Epstein files and everything, it scopes out that wide, and it has to do a lot with private equity, more so than like any, you know, crazy island stuff. So moving on, another video project that I wanted to cover was basically, and it kind of goes into what this video itself is, but it's more so the topic itself. Just get started on the things that you want to do. You know, you have a phone, there's a microphone on that, you can do it. That is the video topic. That's literally, it's just do it. Get started. It's easier than you think. The hard part is doing it. And doing it is what everybody else isn't doing. Okay? So that's another video topic. That's more of just like an inspirational, get your name out there, get a video on the books type of video. I blew up my spot. Oh no! Yeah, I'm in Hitman right now. Another video that I want to make that I'm working on is going over as a comparison of the Nintendo Switch UI, the Nintendo Switch 2 UI rather, and the Steam Deck UI, because I really enjoy both systems. And I'll talk a little bit about my perspectives on these companies a little bit later, but both systems I really enjoy. I think they both have excellent gaming opportunities. Both of them have pretty good gaming libraries. Obviously, Steam, you have a very vast gaming library, and then Nintendo also has a pretty good gaming library outside of just third-party games, because for the most part, any third-party games, I'm going to want to have them on Steam, just because of the freedom that Steam, or PC gaming rather, allows, being able to, for example, just have a DRM-free game. Even though it is, yes, tied to Steam, there are ways to go around that. Whereas with Nintendo, you buy a third-party game, for example, Cyberpunk 2077, it is entirely on the cartridge, which is great, a physical cartridge, but also you can't mod it, which is a really great aspect of Cyberpunk, and there's just all kinds of limitations. So consoles, they have their place. You know, I think that the Nintendo Switch, for being how limited that it is, it's still a very good console for playing on. But compared to the freedom of PC gaming, I think for the most part, your investments are probably better spent working towards, if you don't have a gaming PC, working on that and then building your library for it. The sales alone for PC gaming will very quickly outweigh the cost of any console purchases. So in any case, I grew up, my first console was a PlayStation 2, but it got stolen, unfortunately. And about a year later, the Nintendo Wii came out. So in that downtime between the PlayStation 2 and the Wii, I had a laptop where I played a lot of Flash games. That Hitachi laptop with the Nintendo emulator, my cat laid on it and the screen died. You know, old laptops, that it had some pink lines going down the screen. It was on its way out. It was an old laptop. So I had a laptop where I played a lot of Flash games. So from the ages of like somewhere between 8 and 12, not quite that long, but around those ages, I was primarily playing games on Flash game websites. probably Congregate.com. But then I got the Nintendo Wii, and there were a lot of games that I played on it. Quite a few of them I really enjoy. I still think they hold up pretty well overall today, even though it is a little bit of a quirky functional system. And I will say, having tried to replay some Wii games, it does take some getting used to, even though I am very used to I was very good at The Conduit and 007 on the Wii. Both of those games I played multiplayer quite a lot. So anyway, if you see me looking over a lot, it's because I'm actually just watching this bar right here. So I'm not reading any script. This is all just off the top of my head, basically going off of, from memory, the things that I kind of want to go over and the things that I want to talk about. Gonna do some minimal editing, but for the most part, any cuts that I have are pretty much just me cutting out silence or bad takes. So yeah, anyway, moving on. Eventually, from the Wii, I started hacking that system, and mostly for the modding or cheating capabilities, not for cheating online, but rather just for experiencing what Monster Hunter Tri had to offer. I wanted to see everything that there was to see about that game. And then also, I just really liked the homebrew nature that the community had built for the Nintendo Wii. There were a lot of really fun Flash-like games that were ported onto the Wii, and it was just a really cool experience. Like, there are nights where, you know, my parents would go out for the night and I'd be home alone. I'm an only child, so I'd be home alone, and I'd be, you know, I'd have something on the TV. I remember one night I didn't have cable growing up, and so this was after there was the switch to digital TV, so I actually had more channels than I normally did. So there were a lot of new channels. So I really enjoyed, you know, going through the channels and seeing what was on. Because before that, the only real cable experience that I had either was going to friends' houses, which wasn't very often, or more often, ironically, was on JetBlue. We'd go to my grandparents' house for Christmas, and on the plane flight there, we'd usually take JetBlue. I'd usually watch Boomerang or Cartoon Network, things that I didn't get to normally. And so one night I'm hacking my Nintendo Wii, and The Prodigy has a live concert like show happening on TV. And so I'm watching this Prodigy rave while I'm hacking my Nintendo Wii in the early 2000s. It's just such a great memory for me. And it's really, I think, so quintessential to that like early 2000s like gamer kid, like laptop hacker, like script kiddie type stuff. I don't know what to say, man. It was a great time in the early 2000s, and I'm really grateful to how much it shaped me. Now, after the Nintendo Wii, I did get back into PC gaming, both in the Flash side and then also my first Steam account. I forget what exactly happened, but as it goes, we grow out of the consoles that we love. I moved on from the Nintendo Wii mostly, and I started playing most of my games on Steam at that point. Of course, it had to be different. My parents, they had Mac laptops, and so I had a Mac laptop for Steam growing up, and that meant that a lot of my games on Steam I couldn't play them, rather. So I didn't, it's not that the games that I had, I couldn't play. I wasn't buying games because I couldn't play them. I was actually buying games on Steam, through a program called Steam Play, which developed into what we know now as Steam just as a whole, because Steam Play supported Mac and Linux. And, the Mac operating system at the time, there was a much more limited selection of games for Mac and Linux back then than there were today. And I'm not sure about how Mac gaming is today. I do know that Linux support obviously is much greatly supported with the advent of things like the Steam Deck, and even just getting Steam on mobile operating systems for our phones and things like that. So as I started playing games on Steam more, I started kind of tailoring my library and getting that feeling of like, okay, well, I'm going to have this for a long time. I better start picking the things that I might not want to play now, but I'll want to play in the future. Flash forward 15 years, 20 years, I still haven't played most of those games. I learned a lesson. The things to buy the games that you want to play now, right? Unfortunately, those lessons aren't always remaining to be learned, because as it stands, I have recently bought a bunch of Nintendo Switch games, all used, and I'll get into why in a moment. But I bought them. Granted, there was a little bit more of a valid reason for buying these ones, but still, it's the same type of consumerism that, and a little bit fear of missing out, that ultimately ends up in having a really big backlog of games. And so I'm sure you, like everybody else, we have so many games that we want to play, so little time to actually play them. And what ends up happening is we just look at the games or play the same few games that we are used to playing, and we never really branch out from there. And so one of the things that I want to go over in this video is, or in the Nintendo Switch and Steam Deck UI video also, is kind of why and how we can work around those patterns that we fall into. So first things first, my gaming history already, I've told you, has been pretty dynamic. I played on an emulator on a laptop. I played on the Nintendo Wii and a PlayStation 2. The two very core home console experiences. I went back to laptop gaming and then also PC gaming with that laptop. The early laptop gaming was more Flash games, and then the later laptop gaming was both Flash games and Steam games. And it just goes on from there, right? I eventually got into competitive Smash Bros. In college. I played Smash Bros. Melee competitively, analyzed the frame data, really enjoyed my time with that, but I did have to retire a little bit sooner just because my hands could not hold up. I really enjoyed playing Falco, but unfortunately, I just didn't have the type of dexterity where I was gentle on my hands. I really was really rough, and I wouldn't say I still suffer hand problems from them today, but I do generally just have like arthritic issues early onset in general. So unfortunate, but thankfully I don't have any long-standing pain when I play games. I always make sure now that I'm very adamant about, being good and safe. The only time that I'm bad about circulation in my hands and things like that is in bed. If I'm playing, I'll have at the complete 90-degree angle, and I find that's not very good, both on the shoulders and also on my hands. So I tend to use a pillow for that sort of thing. Eventually, after college, I built my own computer. I really wanted to get more into PC gaming, performance-wise, and really experience these games. I remember I had a MacBook Pro 2012, mid-2012, and that was basically the last fully repairable MacBook laptop. I upgraded it the most I possibly could, including the SSD. I replaced the optical drive with another hard drive. I messed up the speaker at one point, so the speakers got messed up, but I also changed the RAM, and then I believe I I changed the thermal paste. Didn't do any resoldering on that laptop. I still have that laptop today, but it is in a defunct state now, unfortunately, so I'm going to try and get that repaired. But where was I going with that? Laptop gaming. I remember pushing that laptop absolutely as far as it could. I remember when Steam, I eventually dual booted that computer to have Windows on it so that I could actually play games on Steam. And that's when I started buying games that weren't just listed as Steam Play verified, or Steam Play tagged rather. And so not only did I have about 250 games that were all compatible with Mac and Linux, but then now all of those games were also compatible on Windows. And so my gaming library started opening up quite a bit. And as I had Windows on that laptop, I remember trying to push Skyrim to 60 frames per second. And I would reach, there'd be some few areas where it would reach 60 frames per second, and I'd see how smooth it is. And I'd was just like, wow, this is the difference between like this is the hardware limitation and software pushing it, right? Like, especially it being on a MacBook Pro mid 2012 and running through Windows, like it was kind of a hack job and a hack job, right? Because getting Windows on Mac OS, it's not the easiest thing. It's not hard, but it's not the easiest thing either. So anyway, so I built my first computer and I immediately compromised myself because I got the 1060 6 GB, and I just already knew it wasn't going to be enough. So I actually am pretty sure I just returned that right away, and I got myself a 1660 instead, which comparatively is not a much better card these days, but for the time, it did what I needed it to. And I believe I still have that 1660 running in one of my server computers. A couple of years later, I went through that hardware cycle where you upgrade and you upgrade and you upgrade. So I upgraded to a 2070 Super, which was my main computer for a while. I think it was basically the first 8 months was the 1060 to the 1660, and then I got the 2070. I didn't want the limitations anymore. I was done with the limitations. I was done with them. Which, of course, now we know is exactly what NVIDIA wanted, was to kind of impose these limitations and then, hey, don't bother optimizing your game. It's fine. We'll just brute force it, 500 watts, that's fine. We'll just make them have a 1,000-watt power supply. So as it goes. So around the time Cyberpunk 2020, around the time Cyberpunk 2077 was coming out was when I decided to upgrade to the 3080, also because I knew that I was going to be interested in VR, and it was just a matter of saving up for it. COVID rolled around. I had the COVID money. I got myself some VR setup. I was really glad that I had the 3080, and I was actually kicking myself that I didn't get the 12 GB instead of the 10 GB variant. I do still have all of these GPUs today. I use them in various computers for different things. I like having computers around the house for different tasks, and also just like those old computer installations as well. It always feels weird formatting a computer. I do my best to back up all the data when I do have to in case things are feeling sluggish, but it's always one of those like, I'm gonna miss something, right? So anyway, so with the Steam Deck and Nintendo Switch UI comparison, I really wanted to go over my experience on the two different systems, because as I've been a PC gamer for a long time, I've been a Nintendo gamer for just as long, right? Both of those consoles, I mean, technically speaking, I've probably been PC gaming on that Hitachi laptop since I was 3. I'm 30 years old now. That's 27 years, right? The Nintendo Wii came out when I was in 2007, so I would have been 12. So you can do the math. I'm not here to do math. Times 2.
5. I'm not doing that.
That's going to be a thing for this channel. I'm not here to do math. I will do math, but I'm not here to do math, okay? So anyway, I'm good at estimates. I'm decent at math. I'm not good at math. That's how I like to go by things. But I also do like to be, I do like to be accurate as well. So when the math matters, I'll always do the math. I'll always be sure never to lead you astray. Please also do correct me if I'm wrong, but I'll always do my best, and I'll always be very forthcoming about that. The last thing I want to do is lie to everybody on purpose. I'll lie by accident. If I don't know, then I don't know. You know what I mean? Anyway. Oh man, this is going to be a shit show to edit, and I just hope you guys are here to enjoy the channel and here to enjoy the content. So those are 3 video ideas that I have really been wanting to work on, some a longer time than others. The first one being that just do it. I came up with a script for that one. Really, guys, just get your stuff started. Just do what I'm doing. Just set in front of the camera, pull up a game you like, use it as a background, and get going on it. Because you're going to realize sooner than you think that it's a lot of fun, and there's something freeing about having an idea and then actually following through on it. And there's a difference between having an idea and following through and then saying, oh, I don't actually really like that, but you won't know if you never tried, right? The second video idea that I am going to work on, and that is going to happen rather, it's just going to take a very long time, is the overview of the game developer and their history. And I think it's a very interesting gaming history. I haven't seen any videos about this channel at all, or sorry, excuse me, I haven't seen any videos about this game developer at all. I can hardly even say if they may have even been mentioned in passing. I've seen videos about their games. They do not get mentioned. I have the only time you can even really find a digital footprint on them online is for a few specific video game releases that are beloved IPs. They were either ports that they did or versions that just did not perform very well. And you can pretty much find one scathing, like, this game developer, blah, blah, blah. I feel like that is very unusual for a game developer company that has well over 100 games under their belt. And they are the type of game, they're the independent game developer, so they are the type that a studio comes and contacts them for work, and basically they make bids to different companies, and the company says, yeah, we're going to take you over this other one, right? There's a lot of game companies like that. This is one of many, but I'm just very interested at how, one, there's very little information about this company online besides what they present and besides the very few basic articles. They also basically fell off the radar. They stopped kind of being as public. I think I do have an explanation for that in that video. I have a lot of very interesting content, and it's going to be a really good, very interesting video. I'm really excited for it. I've told all my friends about it already. It's just the kind of thing where it is so vast, so big, and I'm trying to decide how I want to do it. If I want to have it be one big long documentary, if I want to have it split up into kind of different parts and sections, or how if just get them out at all, you know. But it is also the kind of thing where I want it to be well produced, and I want it to have good justice, because it is one of some of my favorite games that they've done as well, that really do mean a lot to me. And also, they probably mean a lot to a lot of you as well, because some of these games are, you know, we don't think about them daily, but when you've played them, you remember them. At least for their big core games that they're known for. Outside of that, they have some really interesting. They just go all over the market. They've done a lot of different consoles, although they did focus primarily early on like PC and early games, and then they went to the Nintendo 64, the other games around, or the other consoles around that generation, before they really started getting into specifically the Nintendo Wii and the PlayStation generation after that, before they expanded and basically branched out into what they became today, before they were absorbed by private equity. So if that sounds interesting to you, please definitely stick around, subscribe. I will try and give updates on that video as I'm working on it more, because it really is just a really cool thing. Anyway, that's enough about that one. The last topic, or the last video that I'm interested in starting off with this channel with, is the Nintendo Switch 2 UI and the Steam Deck UI, sort of as a comparison of both systems and how they perform. Or, sorry, not how they perform necessarily, because there's lots of footage on that, but their UI systems and what it's like to interact with them, because I actually feel like there's not as much stuff about, you know, just the differences between the two UIs and what it's like to use them in practice, both, you know, not even quirks wise, like, oh, the Steam Deck does this poorly, but it does this well, and the Switch does this poorly, but it does this well. Not like that so much, just like what it's actually like to pick it up and play it, and what you can expect between the two. And then also in that video, my personal preferences between the two. You know, I really like the Switch 2's simplicity. I think that makes it very easy to just pick up a game and start playing it. But I also don't like the limitations that it has, because right now you need to have a Pro controller to be able to rebind 2 back buttons. And that's just limited behind having that controller at all, versus on the Steam Deck, Steam input allows you to rebind buttons completely. You can make these buttons, if you want them to be, you can make them buttons on a keyboard. You can make them different things entirely. And so that customization really is one of the biggest benefits, I think, that there is to PC gaming, because I love custom inputs. I think they are genuinely one of the most fun ways to experience your games. And I always use my basic core example. I am the only one I ever see talk about this. I set up an auto walk or auto run setting in a lot of my games on Steam. I have a Steam controller, the new one. I also have the pardon my reach here. I also have the old 2015 Steam controller. I love these things. I can't get enough of them. I think trackpad input is a really cool input style, because I really like controller inputs for the button inputs. I think there's very minimal latency. I think they're very effective, but I hate the analog joystick inputs. I think they're clunky. I think they're slow. I think they're not good. I think they're bad. I like them for WASD movement. I think it's good for moving your character around. I understand that aspect of it. But for aiming, I think there's a reason that aim exists on consoles, right? Aim assist exists on consoles, right? Because aiming with a joystick doesn't, it's bad, right? And a lot of you are going, well, you're just bad. I grew up on a PlayStation 2 and the Wii. The fact of the matter is that there is a physical limitation between the 360-degree rotations of the joysticks, where you physically cannot go between subpixel layers the way that you can with mouse input. That is just a simple fact. It's not a matter of like better or worse. It is just a fact. I love analog input and joysticks for movement. I don't think it's good for aiming. That's all there is to it. And so the Steam controller having the analog inputs, or sorry, having the trackpad inputs, allows you to do this really cool functionality where, actually, I might be able to show you right here. It's a little dusty. So I just do one simple spin, and it continues on its own. And you can see it's a little quirky right now because I'm not holding it normally, but you saw before I pulled it toward me, it looked nice and normal, good full, completely sideways, horizontal spin. And when I want to stop moving, I just tap, spin, tap, spin, tap, spin, tap, spin, tap. It's really fun. I use that. I played Monster Hunter as one of my favorite games. Monster Hunter Tri was my first Monster Hunter game, but I did play Monster Hunter for the PS2 at a friend's house. But Monster Hunter Tri was my first Monster Hunter game. I put well over 1,000 hours into that game, which, if you know, it was the base game, not the Ultimate Edition. So basically, there was no real post-game content. The post-game content for that game was playing on multiplayer. And I played that game on multiplayer a lot. I remember when Alatreon released, it was really fun, really cool experience. Anyway, part of Monster Hunter is that this is the camera movement. They intentionally, but part of the fun of Monster Hunter is that they artificially increase the difficulty by having very long played out animations, and then also by having, get back in the proper setup spot here, by having long drawn out animations, and then also by having kind of awkward camera controls. And they subsided with that in the newer games, especially with Monster Hunter World, because it came out on PC. And when you have PC, you aren't bound by the time-based input method. Instead, you're allowed to do it by a distance-based input method. How far you move your cursor or your mouse relative to the cursor on the thing. And so where on a controller, you're holding the joystick and you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting, which can be very fun for Monster Hunter. I think controllers are a great way to experience Monster Hunter, and I do prefer controllers to PC. To mouse and keyboard for Monster Hunter, but I prefer the Steam controller to regular controllers because it gets you the best of both worlds. You get that analog input for your character movement, but then you get the mouse input for your camera movement, and that gives you that swipe tap motion. You can increase the camera sensitivity, and all of a sudden you're doing things in Monster Hunter that were never possible before. At least visually. They may have been possible before, but you're seeing things that you were never able to see before. And then when Monster Hunter Rise came out, this was further. I played that game on the Nintendo Switch. I put a lot of time into it. I realized recently, well over 300 hours, 400 hours. I was very surprised by that. I didn't realize I'd put that much time into Monster Hunter Rise on the Switch. And then I bought the game again when it came out on Steam, and I basically restarted on Steam and continued on when Sunbreak came out. And the reason I continued on Steam is because I had the Steam controller and I was able to use Steam input. And Steam input for Monster Hunter Rise makes it so that it's basically Monster Hunter Spider-Man. I will say that again. Spider-Man in a Monster Hunter video game, because you are looking up, you're pulling yourself forward, you're going backwards, you're doing all your fighting with the monsters in the Monster Hunter style. You do the web zip. It's literally Spider-Man Monster Hunter. It is such a fun game. I wish that I was able to enjoy it more these days. I recently, when I got the Switch 2, I replayed a little bit of Monster Hunter Rise, and I also got the Sunbreak expansion just for completionist's sake. It was on a very deep discount at the time, so I didn't feel too bad about spending more money. Plus, I really do enjoy the Monster Hunter series, and it's one of the few games that I don't feel bad about putting a lot of money towards, especially since they are moving towards more DLC, which I don't like, so I try not to support that aspect. I'd rather buy the game itself in other ways. Anyway, so unfortunately, the Switch 2 Monster Hunter Rise is just not a very good experience. It still feels like it's limited to 30 frames per second. So I would just rather play it on PC. And on Steam Deck, it is not limited to 30 frames per second. Plus, you also have the benefit of the mouse input. Anyway, so moving on, I was talking about the differences between Steam input and Nintendo Switch, and I was talking about the auto run and auto walk mechanic. And on the Steam input, for auto walk is very easy. You just have a simple toggle on any button that you enjoy, whether it be some back buttons, whether it be a run button, or whether it be something else. You can also now toggle it to all kinds of things on the Steam controller. It's very interesting. I personally enjoy having, for Monster Hunter as an example, you have your roll button where you press A or B, you press your roll button, you press your roll button. If you hold the roll button, it'll toggle it so that then you enable auto walk. And enabling auto walk is simply saying, I'm going to press up or W. You can have it be bound to either one depending on the game. If it supports mixed inputs, you can have controller and keyboard inputs. If it does not support mixed inputs or has limited support for it, I do recommend having it all just on one only controller, or bind all of these only to keyboard inputs. I personally prefer mostly doing controller inputs because it is just generally simpler. But there are times where you need to do full keyboard inputs, and that is typically why the original Steam controller, aside from its just kind of more weird ergonomics and then having only one analog stick, so a lot of people didn't like its functionality because of that. I personally didn't mind so much because I already made my thoughts clear on aiming with that, but there's a reason that the original Steam controller didn't pick up, and it's for little quirks like that, where some games just didn't work all that great, and you had to bind all of them to a keyboard, and then all of a sudden, you're like, what the heck did I bind to this button? It's telling me to press Q. What is Q? What is Q? what is Q, guys? So it makes sense why the original Steam controller didn't pick up. And now that a long time has gone by, I think 10, 11 years has gone by, this new Steam controller, I really do think that it's going to see a much wider range of adoption, particularly because it's Steam input itself that has gotten so much better, not just the Steam controller, which it has. So, as I was saying, again, for the 5th time, very easy to set up the auto walk or auto run mechanic. I highly recommend you play around with settings like that might sound enjoyable to you. Come up with your own. Definitely share your own with me as well, because I love hearing about Steam input mechanics, some of my favorite aspects about PC gaming. And I'm very grateful that the Nintendo Switch has started to allow, at least if it's my Switch 2 Pro controllers downstairs, but at least with the back buttons on the Switch 2 Pro controller, very glad that they at least are starting to come out with that. So I think it's a really good time to get involved in both of those. And I think that about covers it for this video. I do have a lot of other video topics, but this one is already almost 40 minutes long, probably after editing it. But I do want this to act as an introduction to me. My name is Avery, by the way. I go by Wolf the Wolf's Den, or Wolf, or Avery. Doesn't really matter on this channel. We'll see how it goes moving forward in the future. Call me whatever you want, as long as it's nice. There is one last thing that I want to talk about on this channel, and that is Lego. I have a very large Lego backlog, and I really want to, and part of the reason for that is because I actually put a lot of my builds on hiatus because I would really like to start recording my builds, and it's mostly just the builds themselves. I only have one MOC, my own creation, from a different person, not mine, but so that's something that someone else created, and it's of a Superman Fortress of Solitude. I think that Lego would be a really fun way to kind of bridge gaming and talking style videos, and I'm not sure, since I'm a brand new channel, I'm not sure if I really want to have it all in one or have it branched out on separate channels. Growing 2 channels at the same time kind of sounds a little more strenuous, so not sure how I will see about moving forward. But that's why I want to talk about these things and get your interest, because if you're interested in seeing Lego builds and hearing talks about, different, either Lego products, or what it's like to build them, or just the process in general, it's something that I can definitely do, and I would love to do in general. It's something that I would like to. I have it all set up for it. It's really just a matter of having the time and having the wherewithal to be able to go through and then not only do it, but then also edit it afterwards. So without further ado, everybody, I'm Wolf the Wolf's Den. My name is Avery. I really enjoy you coming by to just my very long expose on myself. I really haven't done anything like this. The first YouTube video I ever made, I was about 10 years old, chubby little guy wearing a Green Day shirt, and I just kind of did a similar video in this style, but it was a lot more awkward. And anyway, I'm hoping that this turns out pretty well. I'm hoping that you guys receive it well, and I hope to see you guys more in the future. I'll catch you later.